like so hyper vigilant after this like event that like their body's like, why fuck you listen to music, motherfucker? Like we gotta be ready. Is like kind of how their body's
Yeah.
reacting. Yeah.
True. Yes. But also it makes sense because you can really like
Yeah.
miss a siren and you have to like be hear it, and we are very like vigilant to the sounds all the time. So there is like boom somewhere and I'm like that, and they're
Right.
like, oh, it's neighbors, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, it's like you have to be like very vigilant, and if you hear like loud noises, it's better to be actually. So you need to like hear and know what the fuck is going on. I can pretty much tell the distance and the artillery and the type of weapons that I use by sound.
Wow.
So yeah, so I can like tell if it's shitty or not, if it's like far away, not far away.
It's probably not a skill
Mm.
you ever expected to need to have.
Yeah, it's true, but useful here. So
Yep. Yeah.
so you need to like drop down to the ground maybe, or you need to. What actions do you need to take to, survive?
Yeah. Do you find that you're very one day at a time right now? Like, because I imagine you guys are thinking, we just got to hold on till after the war, but it sounds like nobody's really making plans for after. Like, what are we going to do? Because
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the after the
that's
war
true.
is like, it's like the oasis on the horizon, and you don't even know like when you're going to get there or if you're going to get there or what the journey's going to like on the way. Like, are you living very much like one day at a time, like not trying to think too far into the future?
Yeah, but because it's just, I think it doesn't make much sense to be honest. Like it can get blown up right now as we speak.
Mm.
So what the fuck would I like think about, years ahead if I not like 100% sure I will like survive the war yet. So it makes sense to not to like think about it all the time, like, oh, I'm gonna die, but to just think about it, to take some measures maybe, and to give, I don't know, your mom your password from your cards so she can get the money if you die, stuff like that. Not that I had much before, and money I use for volunteer work, and but still to people to, have some access. You have to think about what actions you need to take if you die, what will like happen. We talked about what we want to be done with our bodies, maybe like bury or like cremated, or stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so this is like a very practical conversations, so what will like need to be done. So it's easier for the people that when it happens, or if it happens, that they can know what to do, so they have less plan what to do with like you, and you know I will say that this is kind of like what unsettling, I guess, to most people is the grotesque part of it, so what happens to the bodies and to the kind of very unpleasant to think about it. I know that if I die, I won't give much of a fuck how my body looks, but to it's kind of like, I don't know how to even explain. It's on a physical level, kind of unpleasant to imagine your guts out, when
Yes.
you die. So yeah, so this kind of like a thought, I guess. After what happened to my father, it became kind of like more prominent in my mind, I guess. So I'm not like more afraid, I wouldn't say, but I'm more cautious, because I know I was pretty reckless before, I'd say. So in
Oh,
terms of how I conducted myself, so I would not like asking for trouble basically, but I would be like more reckless, I guess. But now I'm a little bit more. I still do what needs to be done. So if I need to go to a pretty dangerous area to volunteer work, I will. But I'm more cautious in the sense that I understand that it's not about me. It's not just me. It's like my family, my friends, people who will like, see that what remained of me, for example, and
yes.
they will be like extremely distressed, like we were when this happened to our father, how painful that was. So I know that now after I saw what happened, and I think about mother, think about sister, think about my bestest friends, like everyone who will like be terribly destroyed by what can potentially happen. So when you like put yourself in danger, you still do that because it's important to do that, but you kind of like need to understand that it's not only you have to think about, but also other people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that's kind of comes when this whole death was pretty close. I had friends who died already and were mutilated by war and lost their loved ones and stuff like that. But it will be honestly hard pressed to find a person in Ukraine right now, in the east at least, that who did not at least lose someone they
Right.
know. So
Yeah.
yeah, so and yeah, some people lost their entire families, and and what I mean is you have to like reconsider something. It's like value of your own life, I guess, to others.
Is
So
there time for like
uh,
funerals and stuff, or like how do you? Because like with such a large number of deaths like per day, how is your guys' like how are you guys managing it as as a community?
so in areas where there's active fighting, active artillery, and cities that were under shelling, that was no way to go there. Even people would just bury their loved ones in the yard, like
Right.
in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. And my father, we had to cremate because basically they were not doing burials in Kharkiv
Okay.
because of the amount of people dying.
Yeah.
So yeah, so and
So in
that's
Kharkiv, everyone
yeah.
was being forced to cremate loved ones. Like there was no other option.
Not really.
They had to
You
be
kind
cremated.
of can get the body outside of Kharkiv, and you can transport it to maybe somewhere else, bury it in a better area that is not so shelled and shit. But it now is much calmer, so maybe it's already working. I'm not sure. Like, but at the time it was pretty impossible. I tried to get my father's body to Greece because my relatives, his relatives, not mine any longer, but his relatives, like my aunts and stuff, they demanded his body to be brought back to Greece. They pretty much said that it's all our fault that he died.
Is
It
this
was not
the
very pleasant.
relatives that asked if it
Yeah,
was the military base?
no, that's another crazy fuckers, but it's
Okay.
in Greece. Those were from Russia, so they were
Okay.
like, "You killed my like brother. You killed his sister," would say, and not the best thing to hear like the day when your father died. But I was like very mad, and I said, "What the you fucking bitch?" Like Russian missile killed your brother, not me. So he would not leave. It was his decision not to leave, and so basically it was an ugly conversation, and by the end of it I was like kind of salty and wanted to not to give them this like permission to send his body to Greece. But then I thought maybe he would wanted that, and to him for him, like to be the better person, I guess. And but it did not work out, unfortunately, because of the paperwork, and Greek's counselor, and she's like ambassador. She's like a bitch, giant bitch, and she would not sign any documents from Ukraine if you did not have like proper documentation. And for example, we sent bodies of Americans who died here, like journalists and stuff like that, and British people as well. And they would accept their bodies even there if there were like no documents, no people to recognize them. Still wanted those countries understood that it's war, and they wanted to bring their people like back home.
Yeah.
But Greek, it's Greece. I'm not going to elaborate any further. So she does not understand what is war, and there was like a mistake made in his like certificate of death, like that confirmed he was dead.
Right.
His
Okay.
name was written in the wrong way, basically.
Okay.
And we tried to like show her that other documents, other stuff, like we will vouch that it was him, his family, and she would just did not understand that the poor doctor that signed this certificate signed 33 ones like that day.
Right.
So she has like no idea about that. So we could not like keep his body in a zinc coffin any longer. It was in such a bad condition, the body, that they could not preserve it basically for a long time. So we decided to fuck it and just cremate him and take this like thing urn. You say it. I'm not sure how to say it. Like urna, which is like a thing when you keep ashes of the dead person. And we took that with us, and it's in Poltava with my sister right now. So much easier to transfer and to. I think maybe someday if I can, I will if I have like the means to, I will probably want to rebuild the house. He really loved that place, so rebuild the house. His house was destroyed. Maybe plant the garden again with the roses and flowers and apricot trees, and maybe bury him under the apricot tree. He was a huge fan of apricots, like jam and like fruits themselves. So he grown trees. He really like cared for them. So maybe that would be kind of like, good thing to do, I guess. But that's in the future when, you know.
Yeah. Past the really excessive.
Yeah. So there are more like important things to think about now and to talk about now. So yeah, actually crazy. I took his this like how to say it, not a bottle, but I forget how it's called. I think the urn is the word in English, like where
Yep.
ashes of the
Yeah,
people.
the urn.
Yeah. Urna, yeah, we say so. It's the same word. And yeah, so this thing I received it via mail postal service. It was pretty crazy. I
Yep.
went to the supermarket, and people generally buy stuff, like clothing in supermarkets or like maybe some food. And I took my dad's what remained of my dad in the postal office
Wow.
in the supermarket. Yeah, it was a bit strange, I must say. So
Yeah.
the guy before me was like receiving some cool umbrellas. So he was like opening them up, and they were like pink green umbrellas, and he was like trying to how he looks with them, to buy them or not. And I was like, please, can I like take my father's ashes and go? And they were like, oh yeah, of course, here's your father's ashes.
Wow.
And just the surreal, a bit of a surreal moment.
Yeah.
I went with this box to my home after this, and I thought to myself, like, what is life even?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Has your conception of like death shifted at all? Because at least I don't know Ukraine's culture around like death. Uh, North America's terrible. We just like basically pretend it doesn't happen, and then when it does happen, we just all get really really scared, and we don't know how to handle death in North America at all.
Mm.
Does Ukraine? I don't know Ukraine's culture around like death and funerals or anything, but has your experience with like understanding death shifted or changed at all?
Not really. It's just it's a lot of it now everywhere, and it's not like a death that you would usually see. It's like brutal type of death. So yeah, so that's the difference, I guess. So like the grotesque stuff, the brutality of it, and but generally people are pretty grim, I'd say. On a good day, I mean, people talk about pretty gruesome stuff. I'd say that I told with Steven about it, Destiny. I mean, that the jokes we joke would like get us cancelled 100% in the West. so, so basically, it's a little bit of a different culture, So in the sense that people are pretty chill with talking about some gruesome stuff and joke about it as well. And
Yeah.
I think it's also like a coping mechanism in a way because we have been through some nasty shit here. So like a couple genocides, World War II, two famines, and Chernobyl, which is like the biggest like nuclear catastrophe. People's faces melted from their heads, and so yeah, the history is pretty grim, I'd say. So Soviet Union oppressions, Stalin repressions. Uh, it's kind of like people don't mop about. No offense to the Western people, love you pips for the support, but we would not be so successful without you all, of course. So, but we don't cry when we spill our latte. So in Starbucks. So this
Yeah.
is what I feel is. I actually envy you guys for real. Like, I want to live in the country when that is my biggest problem.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish to have that one day. So my sister like sometimes get mad at like Western people who talk shit about Ukraine, and she would like always say like, "Holy fuck, they live such a good lives that they have nothing to complain about, so they complain about everything." And I I'm not sure like 100% if she's correct, but it sometimes feels like it. So yeah,
Yes,
so I would
it's the
say
human condition, right? If you don't have problems, then you create them to some extent. It's kind of like
yeah, I
Yeah.
remember my one of our friends. She left to Europe, and she was like, I think living sometime in Germany, and she was like raised here in Ukraine, but she's Polish, like ethnically. And Yana is her name, and she was my sister's best friend, and I also was friends with her. So she then moved to Germany, and she was like very always complaining, like things are so good here. What can I find to fight against? There's like nothing to do for me. And she was very like, like very politically active, very like pro women's rights. She was like social worker as well. So, and she was like, everything is so fucking already good here that I have no like nothing to do. So in Ukraine, I had like all those like monsters to fight with, like real, actual, like very gruesome problems. Not to say that everything is perfect in the West, of course, there are not, of course not, but comparatively,
Yeah.
And then she like returned to Ukraine, and she was like, oh, finally, this fucked up country that I love so much, that has so many like opportunities for me to fight for something better.
Yeah.
And think, yeah.
It's a common, so I work in addictions, right? And with a lot of like high risk populations. And that's a really common frustration and experience for a lot of like workers and even like clients that I've had, right? Is like all of clients being like, I don't really understand why people are complaining about like essentially like these like first world problems when like my clients
Yeah.
are like, I'm homeless and like can't, I literally can't stop doing meth. Like like it's literally like life and death for me
Mm.
constantly. It just like, it puts things into different perspectives, which, man, yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say about that. I want to
Yeah,
be,
I
I don't
think
want to
so.
derail. I don't want to derail into like my own talking points about this, obviously. So I'm
No,
trying to
no,
be
it's
mindful
it
of that.
makes sense exactly. I think you can actually be people who work with people with such like drastic, horrible experiences. People like you who work with them can actually be much more, I think, grounded, I guess, in what real like horrible struggles are. So I think for you it might be, it's my like, maybe I'm wrong, but I think like for a person like you, it will be much harder to be like, say you have depression because someone said on Twitter that you look ugly today. So not to like say that people can't have depression because of like social media, of course they can, right? But I think like if you see this kind of like real horrible stuff, you then just have to like reevaluate some stuff that people complain about just by nature, I guess.
Yeah, it speaks so much to how so much of human psychology seems to be, and like human experience and perception of their world is mostly based on relativity, right? For example, like wage, like differences in incomes only seem to like have drastic impacts on society when it's relative like wage gaps, right? Like when there's like these
Yeah.
awarenesses of things. For example, we see like trauma, for example, when we look at like different like nations that raise kids like in a much more, in a way that in North America we would say is abusive, we see like significantly lower levels of trauma because, for example, like I have a friend who was like raised in Mexico City, and he would like talk about like his dad like beating him constantly, and he
Yeah.
would just like laugh about it because he's like, yeah, it's just like, what dads do, and they just beat you. Which like in North America we're like, what the fuck do you mean that's what your dad does, right? Which like speaks to like both the adaptivity of the human capacity of humans, but also like the relativity of suffering, like how like it seems to be that when your experience is relatively distinct from those around you, that's what can cause you to be like more distressed than anything else, right? Like even as you described, like one part that seemed like distressing in your life event was like when you were aware of like all these problems and you were being called like a crazy radical for like your fears about Russia, right? There's like a distress and like that relative disparity in like view of the world. But now
Yeah.
that you're all like cohesive, right? It sounds like you have like a better connection to your community, even though that better connection has been found in like the most tragic and horrific of circumstances, which is war.
Yeah, that's true. Also, what you said about like traumatized, that people like person says about that he was beaten up like in as a child, right? But he's not like talking about it as a trauma,
Right.
which may be at some if you think about it, that maybe he's like coping like we coping like with making jokes about terrible stuff, but at the same time he can really truly be not traumatized. So he's more resilient, that person, right? So people wrote me emails, messages after I appeared on CNN, and they were like, oh, you must be like so traumatized, have like PTSD and like depressed. And I was like, I'm not. Like, and I'm not like trying to, be like cool and stuff. I just genuinely don't think I have those things. So
Right.
it's okay to have those things, especially during war, but I don't
Like,
think
what?
I do.
I've got green
So
hair. Of course, I'm fine with mental health.
yeah, yeah. So and but I don't think, I genuinely don't think I'm like depressed, or I don't have like I don't have like PTSD.
Yeah.
Some people do, who were like blown their house is blown apart, right? But I'm not. So it's just people sometimes tend to, especially I think in the West, I feel like they just traumatize themselves. I'm sorry, it might be a little bit offensive, but they just so like caught up in little shit, and they like traumatize themselves. It's not the event that happened is so bad, it's how they see it and how other people tell them. It's like my sister, she actually took psychology courses, no,
Horses?
courses.
Yeah.
Cur- yeah, courses. Curse is a different thing. So she took courses from Israeli psychologists. Actually, they did this like psychological classes for free for our professionals in psychology, to teach them how to deal with blowing up, basically, with people blowing up with like rockets, with very traumatic, stressful like event, how to act around those people, how to treat them, how to, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So my sister took this like curse, not curse.
Of course.
Ah, sorry. It's
You're good. You're good.
thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's very similar word. Like it's like deaf and death, like death, like that doesn't hear anything, and death, like die, death. So yeah, and so basically she was like studying for free. They did those lessons for free, and I found a way to escape that word, lessons. So they did those lessons, and she was like, you don't have to tell person, oh my god, you were traumatized.
Right.
No, you don't do that. You say like, you're fine, everything is okay, here's the task, go like call your some relative, or you can go make yourself a coffee. So you tell them what to do, so you try to ground them, right? So you try to bring that control over their life back to their hands, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, coffee, yes, I can do that. And you send them, and they can like like do some tasks. Like my mother actually wanted like all the time to do something, like to clean, to like to cook. She always did it, but after what happened, she was like always trying to concentrate on being like useful, being capable again. And this really helps. So not that, if you tell this Israeli like psychologist told people here. So if you tell them, the person, that they are traumatized, they will be basically traumatized.
Yes.
So if a person like sitting like with a blanket, like they were like blown up, but they actually don't have like traumatic disorder, right? So they are kind of okay. So they're understandably terrified and grief. They have grief for the loss of their like home, their maybe relatives, but they are not like experiencing this like trauma.
Yes.
And if you tell them, oh my god, you must be so traumatized by this explosion, and the person will be like, oh, am I? Oh, yes, it was so bad. I am traumatized. So we can like actually push the person into that trauma with, if you stay. At least that's what they said.
Yep.
And I think they kind of know their shit because they, deal with it a lot. So,
Yeah, retroactive
um,
traumatization is a really, really big problem, actually. Like, it's one of the things, for example, in my line of work when I'm doing addiction care, for example, I'm working, like when I was in my youth center, I was working with kids who were like rescued from like grooming and like grooming
no.
and pedophile rings, like really extreme shit, right? Like really intense shit that like any normal adult looks at that and says that must be traumatizing. But I remember one of my coworkers saying this to the client, of being like, "You're probably traumatized," but the client herself wasn't there yet. And I remember like being so angry, and we had like a big sit down with the staff talking about it, where basically like it was reinforced again of like, it's really, really important that when it comes to something like trauma, like trauma is your own that is yours. Like it is your thing, which means you get to dictate the terms of it, which means you get to label it trauma if and when you decide that it's trauma, and nobody else gets to do that for you. And to do so, you might think that you're being compassionate, but what you're actually doing is just like inserting yourself where you don't belong. Like you're trying to rescue somebody before they're asking for help, which is like a really bad thing.
Yeah. This is something they like insisted that our professionals, psychologists, like don't do.
Yeah.
Because yeah, so if a person is like traumatized already, then you will like notice it basically.
And
But
they
if
will
they
know.
are not-
They will know. They might not have the
Yeah,
language,
yeah.
but they'll be like, something's wrong. Like something's off with
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
But if they're not, like, don't tell them they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because then there will be, basically.
Yeah. Let people decide their own narrative, basically. Like let them decide it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I received like quite a lot of, emails like telling me like, oh, you must be like this, you must be that. And I'm like, I'm not. Come on. So, like people are doing that with like good intentions, like mean well, basically. So they want to show me that they like think they're like, you want to talk with me, I'm always there. And I'm like, dude, no offense, or lady, like no offense, but like I don't know you, why the fuck would I call you to vent to vent about when I have like my peeps here, like my volunteer, my friends, my like everyone
Yeah.
who I talk to with regularly. So I would much rather, talk with them than, well, maybe they think like I have now nobody to talk to, maybe something like that. So that makes sense, I guess, for them to do. But yeah, but people are, I guess it's understandable because living in maybe in Canada, they were this person was from Canada, I think, who asked me to suggested I should talk to them if I feel like down. I think maybe it's very like you said, try hard to actually kind of like empathize with us and understand fully what we're going through because of the difference in our lives comparatively to Canada, for example, right? And maybe they think like if they were in this situation, they would be like 100% like off the rails, like traumatized, depressed, and something. And maybe they think that it's like that with everyone here. But people are, like I said, very resilient. I pretty much don't know like a single person who is like moping all the time here.
Mm.
Except for maybe my friend who I told you about, like autistic one in Kharkiv. He's like, yeah, very in a bad condition. I talk to him all the time to just get him out of this like loop he's in because it's very hard for him. His best friend, who is my best friend as well, who's fighting right now, is at war. So he was like his rock basically. He would rely on him in a lot of like they were like childhood friends from the very from the very beginning of their lives. So my friend who is fighting right now, he would always like protect him from like bullying, from he would always be like this protective figure in his life. So now he doesn't have him anymore. So yeah, it's hard for him. I understand that, but most people are very like they will laugh, joke about, and you would talk with people like try to cheer each other up. I guess not to mop about the how fucking bad actually things are. So
Yeah, there's I remember my friend saying something about just her own experience with like mental health, where she's also the type of person who is always staying busy. And she would talk about how basically like sometimes when we're like running towards something, we like run so hard, so fast, and for so long that it changes from like running towards something and running away from something. Which is like something I think about in all of this, of like when I see like really busy people, there's always this question of me, I'm like, are you running towards something or are you running away from something? And I think in probably wartime, it is both of those things. Probably for most people, it's both of those things all the time. You're both running toward and away from something.
Maybe it's just like partially coping, partially like the character of the nation in a way, because we just dealt with a lot of shit before. We are not like I don't know how to say it, not in an offensive way, but not fragile, basically,
Yeah, you
so
don't have milk bones.
I've never done any sports.
So we are pretty poor as well in terms of
anything about powerlifting. I never even heard about powerlifting. I feel strength when I powerlift. It tells me I can beat the world. I just want to inspire other women to take care of themselves. My name is Nora Langdon. I'm 78 years young, and I'm a professional power lifter. This is my protein drink. This is what I take after my workout. This is my pre-workout, which I'm gonna drink. I can lift 338 pounds. Nobody could beat that record in my age group. I'm ready to go. I was born here in Michigan, the number 7 of 10 children. My father was a steel worker. He was a workaholic. One of the things that my father told me was everything that you want in life, you have to get up and do it yourself. And that's what I've been taught all my life. This Sunday is my first world competition this year. This is my last workout before the competition, wondering what my trainer is gonna put me through. I started in powerlifting 2006. I was in real estate for about 35 years. Before I retired, I was selling a lot of big homes. And I got halfway up the stairs and I could not breathe. I said, oh no, this is not gonna happen. And because a lot of my friends was a little overweight, I used to say, oh no, why don't you lose that weight? And I said, I'm talking about somebody else. I should be talking about me. It's time for me to go and get some exercise. I had a birthday party. And at the birthday party, a friend of mine, she came and she brought her husband. That's where I found and met my trainer.
You're gonna break 1,000 to state meet.
Yeah, I think you done lost your mind.
Nope, it's time to kick it up a notch. I remember when we first came here, they weren't familiar with us, and we were getting ready for a meet, and I had 350 on the squat bar, and the guys were like, is that for you? I said, no, it's for her. And they were, oh my God. You get a 70, 80-year-old lady squatting 300 pounds, they squat, doing any kind of squatting, it's just amazing. But to do that type of weight, half the guys in the gym can't do that. And I'm talking about young 18, 20-year-olds. So yeah, that's impressive.
The very first day that I got started, he put me on a bench and gave me a broomstick, told me to lift this broomstick. Then he put me on other exercises, and I did that. The following day, I woke up, I said, I am not going back. This is too much for me. I'm getting too old for this. I heard something in the back of my head that says, look, go back. And that was the Holy Spirit. God told us to be consistent in everything that we do if we want to achieve something. So I went back, and here I am today, a professional power lifter. I'm in the 70 to 80 bracket, and so far, I'm number 1.
That's it. We'll work it out today.
Whew.
Good session, good session.
That's it, I'm through. Every year, it's 3 competitions. The state, the national, and then you have to be invited to the world. And I've been doing this now quite a long time. All in all, I have maybe 20 or 25 medals. This one's 2009 World Championship. In 2007, Powerlifting Championship. Getting ready to pack all my gear for this world competition. Every time I go to a competition, if it's out of state, I have to pay my own way. My squat suit cost me over $300. My bench suit cost me over $200. Then you have to buy this belt, which is over $100. I had to buy a new suit for next year, and that's gonna cost me $800 almost. Although I get my Social Security, Uber Eats help supply my suits, my travel, and my extras. I average about $70 to $80 a day. Depends on how long I stay out. Now all I do is wait for a call. Some Wednesdays I won't go because that's my squat day. I'll just go in, pick it up, and come right back out. If I had sponsors, yes, I wouldn't do Uber Eats. I take more rest in between my workouts. The man can get a sponsor real quick because it's more of a male sport. The women just don't get out there enough to get their sponsorship. It's a beautiful rainy day. Ready to rock and roll. I'm just excited about the world because everybody's not invited to the world competition. Everybody in my age group, I can outlift them because I don't have a whole lot of competition because women just don't go in my age group. They just don't keep going. But I kept going because I want to be the best. My top squat is 413. My bench was 180. And my deadlift was 360. So no one has beat those numbers in my age group. So hopefully I can get close to it. Whatever I do, I'm a winner because nobody has beat my record. I'm competing against myself.
Oh my God, I know you. I love watching you compete.
All right.
You rock it.
Thank you. I'm number 15, so I don't go on until 15. Hopefully this congestion don't affect me right now. Need some chalk.
Chalk.
I put the chalk on to keep the wraps from slipping. Your knee wraps. Keep your knees intact when you're squatting. One of my favorite things is I say to myself, nobody hears me, it's just me and the Lord. Greater is he that's in me than he that is in the world. Or I say, give me David strength. And I'm a little nervous every time I do the first one.
Yeah, Nora! 78 years old, y'all, come on! Make some noise!
Yeah, Nora!
Yes, mama!
The first lift that I did on the squats, the rack was too high. That's the reason why I didn't make it. I'm not feeling like
In powerlifting, you get 3 attempts. It was nerve-wracking for her because it's the first time she's ever missed her first attempt, ever, in a squat. I mean, she's a squat machine, but she's fine now. I know she's not feeling 100%, so once you make your open, it's all down here.
I just finished the squat. Now I'm going into the bench. I'll probably go up to 160.
Now relax. This is your thing. The deadlift is your thing. Good job. That was easy to work.
Easy money.
She's the hard one. Quit up on the lift no more. Get over there, sit down, and relax. Good job. You made that look easy. The deadlift is the hardest lift in weightlifting. As one of my mentors said a long time ago, anything with dead in it can't be good for you.
One of my best strengths. This is my deadlift. When I did that last lift, I felt something coming up, and I said, and I stopped, you know, so. But I feel good. I look at the younger women, the ones 50, or less, and I see them pulling 400 or 500 pounds in squats, and I said, "Oh man, I got to get there," and that motivates me because I say age is no number. If you got the strength and the willpower to do it, you can do it.
Nora is an inspiration. She was at my very first meet, and I thought I was doing something at 315 pounds, and she came and picked up like 315 pounds like it was a feather. It was great to see an older black woman powerlifting. I love her every time I see her.
Nora is one of my teammates. She works really hard every day in training. She's up in age, but she is inspiring to all, I feel like, little girls, young girls, everyone.
My real goal is to do 500. And if I can do that by the time I'm 80, that would be wonderful. Because that'd be a real world record for an 80-year-old woman to do 500 pounds. That, I hope the world recognizes me at that point.
The champ is here!
I'm excited. I'm not ready to quit. I'm gonna keep going until the good Lord take me home. God give me the strength to do it, so I do it. I don't want to be in a category by myself. I want other young women to grow up and live as much as I'm doing or more, and that's exciting to me. That's one of the things I want. As I'm doing or more, and that's exciting to me. That's one of the things I want. You know, for another competitor to come up and do my lift, step up. Yay! My prize one is my trophy over here. This is a Michigan State Meet Championship, and they gave me this sword. I was so excited because I did not expect that. And I don't forgot how much I pulled at that time, but that I enjoyed.
Connected. Channel switched.
Da ist er doch, da ist er doch. Johannes, dein Tipp. Er redet nicht mit uns.
Disconnected. Connected. Disconnected. Connected. Disconnected.